about his cabinet. And The Economist magazine has called him Britain's Steve Jobs. Here's a look at his retirement speech at Old Trafford.
Your job now is to stand by our new manager.
I should say that's a new manager that you chose.
Yeah. We had all the qualities.
Yeah, but man, you left him in a very tough place to be. I mean, because you're following you.
Yeah.
You know? Some would say that you don't want to follow the guy who follows Alex Ferguson. You want to follow the guy who follows Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
You know. I want to talk about this, but let's just begin because we're sitting here at this point before an American television audience. Manchester United. Tell me about Manchester United.
Well, I think it's such a romantic club. I think that dates back, obviously, to the 1958 Munich air disaster. It created a lot of sympathy, which was justified because it was a young team growing. It could have been a great team, and all the players, I think the average age was about 21 years of age, and 8 of them lost their life in Belgrade and in Munich in that air disaster. But that was only the start of the story. I think the real story was when Sir Matt built a fresh team to win a European Cup within 10 years. And I think that created what Manchester United is today. It's got bigger, it's bigger and bigger. My first trip out to Taiwan in 1988, thousands outside the hotel, running about in the corridors, knocking on doors. And that love of the club has just grown and grown.
What accent do I detect in your voice?
I'm a Glaswegian. And you have a bit of Scots in you
yes,
also.
Yes, I do indeed. I don't say it as well as you do, though.
No. Yeah. I've never changed my accent. I don't think...
it wouldn't be your nature, would it?
No, exactly.
It wouldn't be your nature.
Stay the way you are.
Here's one thing you said. For a player and for any human being, there's nothing better than hearing "well done." Those are the 2 best words ever invented in sports. You don't need to use superlatives.
Absolutely.
Well done.
Well done, yeah. But I think that there's always that area where people get carried away and use superlatives. Oh, fantastic, wonderful. I just minimise it to well done. I think the players get to know that phrase, and they know I'm satisfied, and they know I'm praising them to any level they want to take it. Well done. It's fantastic 2 words.
When you arrived, I mean, you had been a player and a manager. When you arrived there in 1986.
Well, it was a club, obviously, that my main philosophy really was with young players and developing young players. And Manchester United at that time did not have a youth system we should expect. Going back to the 58 Matt Busby Babes and all that. And I decided I must build a football club. And by doing that, then I had to work really hard at developing a youth system which gave me a stream of players continually through year after year and right up to present day, and it exists to this very day.
Yeah, but think about this. I mean, just recently, today, when we have to make sure, you call it football, we call it soccer, just for everybody, for the sake of different references. We read every season of somebody going from one team to another.
Yeah.
Some team buying some player because they think that'll take them.
Yeah. Well, the way that the game has changed in terms of television, satellite television, the money it's ploughed in by television, it gives clubs that opportunity. Even middle league teams are now spending 25 million in players. You know, at United we do buy players, but we also have this great youth system where they produce their own players.
But the best dynasties always have some capacity. To create a dynasty is to create a system that will constantly produce new players, and a system that allows them to grow into their own.
Yeah, absolutely. Time. That's the secret. And of course, with young players, not just do you can create your teams for 3 and 4, 5, 6 years, you also create a great loyalty. They'll always remember the manager who gave them their first chance. They'll always remember, they'll always appreciate that opportunity given. And yet, United have given young players at 16 years of age first team games. Ryan Giggs made his debut at 16 years of age. It has never been lost in giving players with ability the opportunity to play at United.
But did all the money sometimes cause you to say, it's not worth it for me to create the unity of a team, to have somebody that makes as much money, or B, is caught up in all the stardom.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never worried about teams who spend whatever they want to spend. At the moment, we're getting a lot of Middle East owners. We've got American owners.
Russian.
And Russian owners. And it never bothers me one bit. All I concern myself is how we can maintain our level of expectation, be competitive, be up the top part of the league. Don't win it every year, but we're always competing every year. And the only concern I have is make sure we are there. And you can do it different ways. We've spoken about young players, yes, and it's really important, that part. But from time to time, we have spent big money and giving the player who can make a difference.
Who's the best player you ever saw?
Well, I'm a Pele fan from way back as a kid, and there's always this great debate about Pele and Maradona.
Right.
But I was brought up in the
Pele for you.
Yeah, Pele for me. But the present day, you've got to look at Messi and Ronaldo. They are unbelievable.
The best
players.
today.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely.
The best have what in common?
Well, I think they've the courage. You know what? I say this for all the...
Courage.
Courage. The courage to take the ball all the time, the courage to make sure they're not going to be intimidated by their opponents, the courage to express themselves at all time. And I think the great players have got that.
Yeah. Are they born with it?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, but imagine that.
But you can acquire it, but...
You can develop through coaching, but I don't know if you can develop the courage. I think that's
courage.
definitely...
You either have courage or not.
Yeah, I think
to be there.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's like the best basketball players want the ball in the last 15 seconds.
Yeah. When we assess teams, we always say, right, who's the player who wants the ball all the time, the opponents? Who's the one that wants to take the free kicks all the time? Who's the one that wants to dominate? And that's the one you concentrate on.
That's the one you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what The Economist magazine said about you. Mr. Ferguson could reasonably be described as Britain's Steve Jobs, given his unorthodox, talent-obsessed, and sometimes bruising approach to making something beautiful. We'll talk about all those things, but did you think you were making something beautiful?
I think that the encouragement I got from the early part, once the club stood by me, the early days were difficult.
Yeah, the people wanted you fired.
Yeah, exactly. One or two banners were up saying time up and things like that. But
saying what?
Time's up. Yeah. Right. In that period, I lost a little bit of confidence, but I didn't lose my determination. And I knew the things I was doing at youth level were correct. So the board, with Martin Edwards, the chairman, and Bobby Charlton in particular, stood by him because they knew what was happening. So by doing that, I then knew that we had something special in these young players. Beckham, Giggs, Scholes, the Nevilles, the Butts. And they all came into the first team round about the same time. So when people assess United of today, they maybe don't understand that those boys were the spirit of the club. They created a fantastic spirit of Manchester United as it is today.
Here it brings me to Harvard Business School. This is a Harvard Business Review. You went up there and they developed a case study.
Yeah.
Now, what was the question? Generally, these things have a question. Was it
the main central point of the discussion was love and hate.
Love and hate.
Yeah. Do the players love me or do the players hate me? Was there a balance? And of course, there was also, many different opinions of that. I took the central position, respect. Yeah. And that's always look for, respect,
So if someone said they'll either love you or respect you, you'd say respect every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's
suppose they said love or fear. Would you say fear?
Fear. I think fear does come into in some respect, in the sense of when you lose your temper. I don't hide behind the bushel in respect to the times I've lost my temper. But you know what? The quality I had was when I lost my temper, I never ever brought it back again. The next day was another day for me.
Yeah, right.
Finished.
In other words, you just popped off and then...
So they understand then...
You didn't hold grudges.
Never hold a grudge. It's really, really important. And then they understand what you are and who you are. And they can get support from that.
Yeah. You're a fan of Doris Kearns Goodwin, and her book, Team of Rivals, which was about Lincoln choosing his rivals for his cabinet because he respected their talent, plus he wanted them where he could see them.
Chase, Stanton, and Seward into his cabinet and knew where they were, Very clever. And of course, I think that Lincoln at that time was faced the most difficult period for a president in terms of the South and the North, and also which he was very good at not making quick decisions. He thought it all through and allowed his cabinet to have their say and then decide thereafter. So it's a great book. I mean, it's a fabulous book.
Yeah. You see the movie Lincoln?
Yep.
Do you like that?
And I didn't think it was a great movie, but I thought the central piece about of the time, the period it had to deal with was fantastic. Yeah. The acting was unbelievable.
It was indeed. But understanding that he had to do everything he could, push, pull, scream right, in order to get
where he wanted
emancipation.
Yeah.
Because that was the goal, and he understood the consequences. Yeah. So let's go all out for emancipation.
And by the situation at Antietam, where he was able to announce it after that, winning that particular battle allowed him to be able to give the Emancipation Proclamation out, so it was an important time, that,
You're a kind of student of the Civil War.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great history. I mean, it's a young history. And the funny thing about it is I bought a couple of books. I was in Chicago for a week holiday with my wife, and I went to a bookstore and I bought these couple of books of interest without going back about 14, 15 years ago. And I was in London at doing a thing with young apprentices, and Gordon Brown says, "What are you reading at the moment?" I says, "I've started a couple of books in the Civil War." Yeah. He says, "I'll send you some tapes." So he sent us a dozen tapes of the professor of Virginia University, Gary Gallagher.
Yes.
And I was playing in my car every morning,
right.
Going to work in that. And I got, a bit fascinated by it, and it's a fantastic history. I mean,
and you go to battlefield sites when you come to the U.S.
Yeah, I'm down to Atlanta.
Gettysburg or not? Yes,
Gettysburg, Manassas.
Right.
Yeah, I've been there.
Bull Run.
Bull Run, yeah. The first battle there were 2 battles there, of course. And I went up to Princeton to meet James McPherson.
Oh, yes.
The great historian of the Civil War, his great battle cry of freedom. He was terrific. He was really very, very engaging and very accommodative in terms of how he saw it and things like that.
Yeah, but not World War II, not World War I, not the War of 1812, not any of the great...
Not
For you, it's
extent.
the Civil War that speaks to you as an object of...
Well, I took it on, and I grew more interested, and I went to a gentleman's house down in the south, down in Atlanta, and he had every armament that was used in the Civil War. Yeah. And then he showed me the battle plans of Sherman.
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic.
I was going to ask you about Sherman.
Yeah.
Burned Atlanta.
And maybe it finished the whole thing.
Famously saying war is hell.
Yeah. Destroyed all the rail tracks.
And I think he may have said, I'm not sure, but the people who hate war the most are those who fight it.
Yeah, of course. And that's a fact,
That Patton may have been an exception. You remember he said, "I love it."
I love it. How can you? Yeah. How can you love war?
Yeah, but I think he loved command is what he loved, probably. Yeah. Patton, and the challenge of.
I think that.
Or Napoleon probably might have loved it too.
I think before you enter war into the army, you think it's great. It's great to join the army. But when you get there, I think going to these combats, I think it's different.
It changes you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You go in thinking,
this is great.
Yeah, and then you see what war can do.
Absolutely. And devastation.
The devastation.
Your comrades killed and all.
And that's where you develop the idea of the most important thing in your world. You're not fighting for country as much, you're fighting for your comrades. You're fighting for the people that you're next to. That you've grown to be. Go through all the experience. So you go to Harvard Business School, and they want to do this case study about all of this and the question of love versus hate. And you come up with this thing called the Ferguson formula. A formula for leadership, a formula for what? Management?
Well, I think leadership somewhere comes along. There's no question about that. How you control well, everyone says a bunch of millionaires, And it's a fact you have to deal with nowadays. The money that's earned through football is quite extraordinary, and you have to control that part. And I think that there's certain things I would like to put across your people to do, not actually always to maybe make them better footballers, to make them better human beings, develop them as a character, so that when they leave me, they could go anywhere. And I think that is really a really important part. Sometimes it's like education. It's not always about teach them what history or mathematics, sometimes inspire them to be the best they possibly can be. And
so
I
you're
think,
teaching them life.
Absolutely. I think that is really important. And you also be developing the character. You know that if you develop the right character, they won't let you down many times. So, you know, once they go in that football field, they're playing for all the things you've ever taught them. About the winning mentality, the determination, how to handle defeat is also just as important. And therefore you develop a group of people that are you. You can see yourself in them. You know, and I think I've tried to do that all the time.
So every team member that plays for you, you look at him and see yourself.
Not all of them, but I like to see myself in the ones.
But if you don't, do you want...
No, you keep developing. Everyone's different, of course. They express themselves in different ways. They're different types of talents, of course. And some, I would never have the talent they had as when I was a player. But I still had that determination to be successful and trying my best.
You and I talked about it. We had a meeting on Sunday evening, and we were talking about the idea that often the best players don't make good coaches or good managers.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand someone who doesn't have the same skill level.
Yeah, it's a fact that I remember speaking to Bobby Challen about that, and he was a manager at Preston North End, and he couldn't understand why the players couldn't understand him.
Yeah.
So he gave up on it, and he was honest enough to say, "Oh, this is not for me." It's a fact of life. I think that if you look at my career, and in a sense, I always say this to anyone who wants to be a coach: prepare to be a coach. And at 24 years of age, when I left engineering to go full-time in football, I made sure I was not going back to engineering. So I did all the coaching schools, I prepared to stay in the game, and I gave myself a chance by that, you know. And I was an average, or good to average player, could score a goal, that type of thing, but I wasn't a Bobby Charlton or a Messi or Ronaldo, obviously. And there's very few really, really great players who become great coaches. I think you can look at Beckenbauer, of course.
Right.
He won the World Cup with Germany as coach. Cruyff, was a great player and won many trophies with Barcelona. Other than that, I can't think of the really great players who don't want to be a coach.
Would it have been for you impossible to manage anywhere else? You couldn't go somewhere else, no matter how much money they offered you, no matter what the opportunity. Or you might have, for the right circumstances, to prove to yourself that you could do it again.
Somewhere else. There was one or two offers came along at my time at United. But I always come back to this point. Why would you leave United? Where is the bigger challenge? Yeah. And the thing about challenge is this. Once you've won something, you can't live in that.
Yeah.
No, not at Manchester United. You've got to win the next one. And that's a challenge. Creating that, maintaining that consistency of winning, which is a mentality that, you know, I've had. Once every time we win the league, celebrate the night, next day is another day for me. Where are we going forward? Yeah. And so therefore, when clubs came to me and offered me jobs, I thought to myself, where is the bigger challenge? Creating history at United, or trying to create somewhere else where I have to start again and build on all the philosophies I had when I first came to United.
So stay at United.
Stay at United.
Let me talk about these principles that are in this article and what's called the Ferguson formula. First one, start with the foundation. What does that mean? Well,
the foundation is starting with what you believe in. I believe in building a football club rather than a football team. I can understand coaches who concentrate on the football team because it keeps them in a job. You know, it's a result industry. You always look at the Paulo Di Canio last week, 5 or 6 games into his first season at Sunderland. They allow him to spend £19 million and then sack him. You know, to me, there's no evidence that's going to bring success. Yeah. There's no evidence. So, by building the football club, I wasn't interested in losing my job because of my results of the first team. I knew I had to do a job in terms of building this football club. So we worked really hard with the youth system, making sure we had a solid foundation that would hold its fort for years and years. So when you see a Manchester United team, and we got to a position where I could plan ahead. So I could see 3 years ahead where this team is going. knowing that I had certain players coming through the youth system would support the youth teams all the time.
And could step into the role that you had defined for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, the second point you say is dare to rebuild your team, which is what... Now, when you mean by that, you even though they may have, a team might have another great season ahead of them,
yeah.
if in fact you know that to have a good team the next year and the next year and the next year, you got to rebuild, even at the sacrifice of say, winning?
Well, the horrible part of the job really is when you have players who have been with you for years, and the evidence is always in the football field, you know. And my job is
the evidence is always on the field.
So when you see a player, and then you see the level just start to dip, there's no point waiting another 2 years. You know, you hurt him more than you hurt yourself, because he'll not want to recognise that the day has come where he's had his time, you know. And having to say that to a player and make the change is very, very difficult. But you can only do that if you have the system where it can fill the gaps and then rebuild the teams as you go along. And over the years, we've probably built maybe 5 teams, you know, through the consistency of being there as a manager and the continuity of the youth system, and the players that you have are not going to last. Even the ones we buy are not just going to last for 2-3 years. You want them to be lasting 6, 7, 8 years. So buying a good age level, maybe 23, 24, is good ages. They've had experience maybe somewhere else, but they've got plenty of years left in them. So you can build a continuity of team.
But what's important here is that you got to be ruled by your head and not your heart.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to say to, you know,
absolutely.
I see it, and it's gonna, you know, better go now.
It's a hard part.
Even though that person may have helped take you to the best moments of your life.
Absolutely.
You rode on his shoulders.
Absolutely. It's a horrible part, as I said. You treat them with family, you know, and then when it's because of your family, it becomes even more hurting in the sense that you've got to say, well, son, I'm sorry, you know, that, you know, you won't be regular, but you can get a career elsewhere, you know, at a different level. And that's happened a few times, but it's not an easy thing, an easy situation.
Not an easy conversation.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Then you say you got to set high standards and hold everyone to them.
Absolutely.
Every
training session, intensity, expectation, the level of concentration will always manifest itself on a Saturday. You know, and that's what we look for at United. And we never had I never envisaged having a bad session in terms of the training. We always make sure the players were completely concentrated on the
training sessions had purpose.
Absolutely.
You knew exactly what they were going to be doing in order to get ready for Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The other one is that never, I believe in this one too, never ever cede control, ever.
No.
You got to be in control.
Yeah. Well, the point I'm making about you're dealing with very young and rich young men.
Yeah.
And I always say to the directors, the minute a player becomes more powerful than the manager.
More what?
More powerful than the manager of Manchester United. It's not Manchester United.
Yeah.
You've lost control of the whole club. So I always made sure I was in control, because they knew who the manager was. They always knew who the manager was.
Your word was law.
Yeah. If you want to put it as blunt as that, yes. But you don't necessarily need to use power in that situation. The control is just nice. That they know who the manager is. They know I'm going to make the decisions. They know they can trust me, which is really important. Trust. And they know that I've got the ability to adapt to change, and they've seen that many times over the years. And I think these are important parts of being in control of footballers.
And what does this mean? Match the message to the moment.
The moment that we look for is the result industry. That they're aware that this game, every game, is about winning. You know, and we try to get the message across. This is a moment where we have to win every game. The expectation is my high expectation of you is to win this match.
But to come back, you know, to be able to say and to find within yourself. When you're that far, you're that close to defeat.
Yeah.
You know, and someone has said, you know, it's a bit like the hangman's noose. Nothing concentrates your attention like.
There must be a moment where they realised that, listen, their character has to be
character
come through here. We have to have the character to overcome this. I mean, we've had some great moments of being behind at half-time and winning games late in the game.
You liked that, didn't you?
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, I'm a bit of a gambler that way because I always say to them at half-time, be patient.
Yeah.
The last 15 minutes, throw the kitchen sink because it's worth the gamble. You're going to lose the game anyway.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better. You get in that last 15 minutes and actually win the game, and the fans are going out the ground singing all their heart out. The dressing room is a fantastic place to be. So, yeah, comebacks are wonderful.
Okay, prepare to win is obvious. You've talked about that. Rely on the power of observation.
Yeah. Well, it's an important part that people don't recognise, actually, by using your eyes. And I remember it first dawned on me that I had a young coach at Aberdeen who said to me, "Why am I here?"
Yeah.
And I says, "Well, what are you talking about?" He says, "Well, I do nothing. You do everything." He said, "You shouldn't be doing all the training sessions. You should be in control of the training sessions." And let me get on with it. And I said, "Oh, no, wait a minute. No, I'm not for that." He said, "Well, I think you're wrong." And we had an old trainer there at the time, Teddy Scott. He was a great old man. He says, "Boss, he's right. He's dead right." So I said, "Let me think about it." So we gave it a try, and it worked. And amazing what you're actually watching and seeing the players' habits, even seeing the little defects in their performance and their habits. And you could see sometimes that he was not quite right today. I wonder what's wrong with him. You know, and there could be a million things. And that observation I've carried through all my career, and I've used that really well. You know,
You have to. I have a theory that you really do have to make sure that you're in the moment. You know, because if you're only in the moment, can you see with great focus? And you always have to ask yourself, what is happening here?
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah. Well, that's the power of observation.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Right. That's a power of observation.
You don't take your eyes off, and you by doing that all the time, you increase your ability to see things happening.
Yeah.
You know?
And people sometimes say things that's not quite where what they're saying. You got to listen so carefully. You know what they're really saying, even though they're not using those words specifically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then there's never stopped adapting. You constantly have to change.
Always. I mean, if you look at United today, their training ground at Charlie is fantastic.